paradrama tales.
He said he missed how I used to look, 2 months after I gave birth to our child. In the shower, after making love, with my body still aching and stitched and trying, and just like that, the most vulnerable version of me suddenly felt like not enough. They never really tell you what 2 months postpartum feels like. Sure, they talk about the sleepless nights, the diapers, the cluster feedings, but they don't talk about the moments where you stare at your own reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognize the woman looking back at you. They don't talk about how the body you once lived in without question now feels like something borrowed, swollen, soft, unfamiliar, or how every muscle aches in places you didn't know could ache, or how a single stare feels like Everest some mornings. 2 months postpartum feels like limbo. You're not pregnant anymore, but you're not really healed either. You're not who you were, but you're not quite whoever this new version is supposed to be. I've been trying to reclaim something, my energy, my confidence, maybe even my identity. I started easing back into the gym this past week, slowly, gently. Not to bounce back, God, I hate that phrase, but just to move, to remember what it feels like to do something for me. But even that's a negotiation. I get maybe 30 minutes to myself after I nurse, change, rock, and re-rock the baby. After I call the pediatrician about the rash. After I finally scarf down half a sandwich while standing up. It's like running a marathon just to arrive at a treadmill, and through all of this, I'm still bleeding, still tender, still carrying 10 extra pounds like a badge no one applauds me for, still trying to find pants that don't press against the incision site, still bracing every time I sneeze. And somehow, amid all that, I'm supposed to smile, to be grateful, to keep showing up, not just as a mother, but as a wife, a woman, a body that is somehow still expected to be desirable. That's the fog, not just the hormones, not just the sleep deprivation. It's the constant weight of performing normalcy while everything inside of you is screaming for rest, for reassurance, for recognition. I don't expect a parade. I don't need flowers or handwritten sonnets. But I thought, maybe a little gentleness, a little softness in the way he looks at me, a little pause before he measures my body against a version of me that no longer exists. Because while he sleeps through the night, I'm counting feedings and leaking through nursing bras and Googling whether it's normal for a newborn to grunt in their sleep. While he eats chips on the couch, I'm balancing a baby on one hip and a breast pump on the other, trying to remember the last time I showered alone. And yes, I wanted this. We wanted this. I love our child with a kind of love that makes me ache. But I didn't think I'd have to grieve myself in silence. I didn't think that 2 months after giving life, I'd have to defend the body that did it. I didn't think that the man who saw it all happen, who watched me split open for us, would be the one to make me feel like I've failed at being beautiful. That's what no one talks about. Not the pain, not the weight, but the moment you realize you're healing from more than just childbirth. We'd just had sex, not wild or cinematic, just quiet, gentle, careful. The kind of intimacy that tiptoes in after a baby enters the world, like it's asking for permission to exist again. I was nervous, if I'm being honest. It was only the second time since giving birth, and my body still didn't feel like mine. Still stitched, still sore, still slow. But I let myself soften, let him hold me, let myself pretend for just a few minutes that I wasn't carrying all this weight, literal and emotional. Afterward, we stepped into the shower together. It was supposed to be tender, warm, reassuring. Water cascading down, steam clouding the mirror, his hands finding their way around my waist. I closed my eyes, letting myself believe we were okay. And then, out of nowhere, he said it. I miss how your body used to feel. Just like that. Casual, almost like a compliment wrapped in nostalgia. And I froze. Not visibly. I didn't flinch or gasp. I just shut down from the inside out. He kept going, like he was reminiscing about an old favorite song. You used to look so good in that black lingerie set. You remember? That one you wore on our anniversary? I remember. I also remember how tight it was, how I had to skip dinner to feel good in it, how I worried the whole night if my thighs looked too soft, how even back then when I was supposedly at my best, I still didn't feel enough. But now I'm 2 months postpartum. Now I'm bleeding, sore, 10 pounds heavier, stretched in ways the mirror still hasn't forgiven. Now I'm feeding a baby every 3 hours and counting the hours of sleep on one hand. And now is when he chooses to compare me to then? I didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't ask why. I just turned my back to him, finished rinsing, and stepped out to check on the baby. Still wet, still half naked, still stunned. I kept waiting for him to notice, to feel the change in the room, to say something, anything to pull me back in. He didn't. To him, it was a comment. To me, it was a fracture. Because it didn't just hurt, it hollowed. It reminded me that even in my most intimate, vulnerable moment, I was being measured, compared, found wanting. And the worst part, I'd let my guard down. I'd let him in. I had just handed him a body that was still healing, and instead of holding it with reverence, he held it up to its past version and sighed. I'm not saying I need to be worshipped, but I needed to be seen, as I am, as I was, standing there, raw, real, trying. And in that moment, all I felt was small. So I wrapped a towel around myself, kissed my baby's forehead, and told my heart to stop expecting gentleness from someone who couldn't even offer grace in the quiet. The funny thing about hurt is how quiet it is. You don't scream, you don't throw things, you just keep doing the next thing. I put on a robe. I walked into the nursery. Our baby was squirming in her bassinet, one sock off, fists clenched like she was ready to fight the air. I picked her up, rocked her gently, kissed the top of her warm little head, and let the rhythm of caring for her cover the sound of my heartbeat breaking. He didn't follow me. He toweled off, got dressed, scrolled through his phone like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just poked a hole in something I'd worked so hard to keep whole. That's what stung the most, not the words, though those were cruel in their own way, but the absence that followed, the lack of curiosity, the missing, "Hey, are you okay?" Or, "Did that come out wrong?" Or even just, "Talk to me." Nothing. The rest of the day moved forward like clockwork. Bottles, naps, diaper changes. We exchanged words, logistics mostly. He asked what was for dinner. I asked if he could fold the laundry. Our voices floated past each other like strangers sharing the same elevator. But in the back of my mind, everything sounded different. I kept hearing it. "I miss how your body used to feel." Like a line from a bad movie, looping on repeat. Only this time, it was my movie, and I didn't get to yell, "Cut." Later that night, I sat at the edge of the bed, nursing. He was already under the covers, half asleep, TV light flickering across his face. I almost said something, almost asked, "Did you mean to make me feel less than?" But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. It wasn't about malice. It was about blindness. He didn't see me, not as I was, still healing, still raw, still trying to believe I was desirable in a body that had been broken open to bring life into this world. He saw a before, a version of me that was less tired, less changed, less real, and I realized I was alone in this, not as a mother, not as a woman, but as someone navigating grief for a body that had done something incredible and still got criticized for not bouncing back fast enough. So, I stayed silent. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I wanted to see if he would notice the shift, the weight of my retreat, the way my warmth folded into itself. He didn't. And that silence, it started to feel louder than any fight we'd ever had. I waited a full day. I let the silence stretch, like skin over a bruise. I told myself maybe he'd come around. Maybe he'd realize something felt off. Maybe he'd ask. He didn't. So, I brought it up, softly, gently, in the kind of voice women use when we don't want to be called too sensitive. I said, "What you said in the shower, it hurt." He looked up from his phone, just briefly, and raised an eyebrow. What did I say? Already I felt smaller. "You said you missed how my body used to feel, that I looked good in lingerie before." He shrugged. "I mean, it's true." 3 words. That's all it took to flatten me. I sat there, stunned, waiting for the smile, the laugh, the "I didn't mean it that way," waiting for the decency of reconsideration. But it never came. Just, "It's true." And I realized then that I wasn't speaking to someone who didn't mean to hurt me. I was speaking to someone who believed truth was enough to excuse it, as if honesty, standing alone, stripped of compassion, untethered from timing or care, was some noble thing. As if saying something that's real automatically makes it right. But here's what I know now. Truth without kindness isn't clarity. It's cruelty. Because there's a difference between being honest and being unfiltered. There's a difference between expressing your thoughts and throwing them like knives, then blaming the person bleeding for being cut. He looked at me like I was overreacting, like my pain was inconvenient, like it made him the victim, because how dare I twist his honesty into something hurtful? And for a second, I doubted myself. That's the scariest part. That someone you love can hurt you, and convince you it's your own sensitivity that needs fixing. But I caught myself. I remembered the girl in the delivery room, the one who shook through contractions, the one who bled and tore and still whispered, "It's okay," when the baby cried, the one who hadn't slept more than 3 hours in a row since her life changed forever. That woman doesn't deserve to feel ashamed, not for her body, not for her softness, and not for expecting care from the man who watched her survive it all. I looked at him and said calmly, "Truth isn't a license to be unkind." He scoffed, said I was making a big deal out of nothing. But deep down, I think he knew something had shifted. Because I wasn't crying, I wasn't pleading, I wasn't trying to fix it anymore. I was just done mistaking bluntness for bravery, done letting someone call it just being honest, when what they really meant was, I knew it would hurt. I just didn't care enough not to say it. I didn't want to go, not really. But I went anyway. The gym felt like the only space that was still mine. Not the house, not the bedroom, definitely not my own body. But the gym still had a door I could close behind me, a place where no one cried unless they meant to, a place where I didn't have to pretend I wasn't falling apart. It had been a week since he said it, since the shower, since the shrug and the "it's true," and I'd done everything I could to shake it off. I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe I was just hormonal, sleep-deprived, sensitive, all the words women use to gaslight themselves before anyone else can. So, I put on the leggings that used to fit better, pulled a hoodie over the softness I was still learning to accept, and drove to the gym like I was chasing something I'd lost. I did everything right, stretched slowly, walked on the treadmill, lifted light weights, focused on my breathing. But no matter how much I moved, I couldn't shake the echo. I miss how your body used to feel, like it was some outfit I'd taken off and refused to put back on, like the body that had carried our child, that had survived labor, that had woken up every 2 hours for 8 weeks straight, was now less of me. I made it through the workout, barely, smiled at the front desk staff on the way out like I wasn't unraveling. And then I sat in the car, engine off, hands shaking, and I cried. Not loud, not messy, just that quiet kind of crying that sneaks up and spills over. The kind that feels like failure, like guilt, like grief you can't even name out loud. I cried because I was tired, because I was trying, because I had expected in some small, foolish part of me that doing this, showing up, sweating, pushing, would make me feel proud again. But all I could hear was him. All I could feel was that no matter how hard I tried, I'd always be the before version of someone he already missed. And I hated that. Not because I need to be worshipped, not because I think intimacy should come with blind flattery, but because I had hoped, truly hoped, that he saw me now, as I am, and still thought I was beautiful, still thought I was worth loving without conditions. But apparently, beauty has a time limit, and somehow I'd expired. I wiped my face before driving home. Didn't want the neighbors to see, didn't want him to ask, not that he would, because when I walked through the door, carrying the weight of what I'd just felt, he didn't even look up from the couch, just asked if I could grab him a drink while I was up. And I realized I'm not just trying to get back to myself. I'm trying to get back to a relationship where love didn't feel like a test I was failing in real time. He reached for me last night, not in a cruel way, not demanding, just familiar, quiet, the way couples do after the baby's asleep and the dishes are done and the world finally stops asking anything of them. Except I didn't move. Not away, not toward him, just didn't. My body still aches most nights. My hips throb when I lay too long on one side. My breasts are tender from nursing. I wear pads to bed. Nothing about me feels like the woman who used to moan easily and arch her back for fun. He rested his hand on my thigh, rubbed slow circles like that would unlock something. And I knew what he wanted, but all I could think was, I can't give you closeness while I still feel this far. Because here's the thing they don't say enough. Intimacy isn't just physical. It's emotional safety wrapped in skin. It's not about how many times we've had sex or how long it's been. It's about whether I feel safe in your eyes, wanted for who I am, not who I used to be. And right now, I don't. Not after what he said. Not after the silence. Not after watching him go about his day like none of it landed. Like none of it lodged itself into the soft parts of me I was already struggling to protect. So, no, it's not about punishing him. It's not about withholding or weaponizing sex, as he put it when I pulled away again. I'm not punishing. I'm protecting. Because when someone makes you feel like your body is a disappointment, climbing back into their arms doesn't feel like intimacy. It feels like surrender, and I'm not ready to give that up. He said I was being dramatic, that I was turning one comment into a whole campaign. But what he doesn't understand is, it's not about the comment. It's about how I needed him in that moment to remind me I was still beautiful, still powerful, still worth touching with reverence, not regret. And instead, he gave me comparison. Now he wants closeness. But what he doesn't see is that the space between us isn't about time. It's about trust. And no amount of sex can fix the feeling of not being fully seen. So, I turned over in bed, whispered, I'm tired, and meant it in more ways than one. There's a moment, somewhere between the pain and the pushing, where you stop being who you were. People think birth is just about the baby, about that first cry, the first breath, the tiny fingers wrapping around yours. But something else gets born too, something no one names. You. Not the you that was, the you that is now. No one tells you that. They celebrate the baby. Bring balloons, take photos, ask how much she weighed. But no one looks at you, the woman in the same hospital bed, and says, hey, you just became someone else too, and it's okay if you don't. Recognize her yet? Because I don't, not always. The woman I used to be could run on 5 hours of sleep and still flirt over dinner. She wore matching bras and didn't have milk stains on her shirt. She made spontaneous plans. She curled her hair. She felt like someone. Now? I check the clock every 3 hours for feedings. I live in high-waisted leggings and nursing bras. I make lists just to remember basic tasks like eat and breathe. And yet, somehow, I'm stronger. Not because I've bounced back, but because I survived something that cracked me open and rearranged everything I thought I knew about pain, about endurance, about love. I didn't just grow a baby, I grew capacity to feel everything at once, to love and ache and break and still get up again at 2 a.m., to hold a screaming newborn in one arm and hold space for myself in the other, barely but honestly. And yes, I miss parts of the old me. I miss her energy, her ease, her sense of ownership over her own body. But I wouldn't trade who I've become, even when I feel invisible, even when the person I sleep beside can't see this transformation, even when I ache for words of affirmation and instead get a careless comment in a shower. Because I'm not just softer now, I'm deeper. I'm not just tired, I'm purposeful. I'm not just heavier, I'm anchored, and I'm learning, slowly, to let that be enough. I used to think reclaiming myself meant getting back to who I was. But now I know she's not coming back. And maybe that's a gift. Because this new version of me, she's stretched, scarred, resilient. She doesn't need approval to feel worthy. She just needs recognition. From herself. And yes, from the man who once called her beautiful without comparison. But even if he never sees her fully, she will. I will. And that's the first step. I used to think love was measured in big moments, anniversaries, grand gestures, surprises with candles, and last-minute getaways. But now I think real love sounds a lot quieter. It sounds like, I'll take the next feeding, you sleep, or you've done so much today, sit, I'll hold her. It sounds like curiosity instead of defensiveness. It sounds like, did I hurt you when I said that? Tell me how. Not, well, it's just the truth, get over it. Because partnership isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about knowing that sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, I didn't realize that landed the way it did. I'm sorry. What I wanted that night in the shower wasn't validation in the form of flattery. I didn't need him to lie. I needed him to pause, to see the full picture, the milk stains, the stretch marks, the quiet tears at 3 a.m. The way I still tried to touch him, even when I felt nothing like myself. The fact that I invited him into that moment at all, after everything my body had been through, was a kind of trust. And he broke it. And then he blamed me for the distance, said I was withholding intimacy, as if I'm a vending machine and someone forgot to press the right buttons. But real partnership doesn't sound like accusation. It sounds like awareness, like, you've been quiet lately. Are you okay? Like, your body's done so much. I'm proud of you. It sounds like two people learning each other again, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because that's what birth does. It doesn't just bring a baby into the world. It brings a divide. And it's the partner's job not to cross over it with criticism, but to build a bridge with kindness. I know now that I don't want someone who loves my body before. I want someone who respects what it became, who sees beauty not in the tightness of skin, but in the strength it took to stretch. Real partnership sounds like humility, like a man who says, teach me how to love you here too. Because if love only exists in the easy seasons, the candlelit ones, the toned and dressed up ones, then it was never love to begin with. And maybe he's not ready for that kind of love. But I am. And I know now that if I don't hear those words, if I don't feel that care, then I'd rather walk alone for a while than share a bed with someone who thinks loving me is conditional. Because real partnership doesn't just touch you, it holds you, especially when you don't feel beautiful, especially when you don't feel whole, especially when you're still rebuilding the person you used to be. I'm not angry anymore. That surprised me, how quickly the anger burned off, and what it left behind wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. Because at the end of all this, I didn't want to win an argument. I wanted to be seen. Not just for the body I used to have, but for the woman I am now. Stitched, sore, strong. And if the person I love can't meet me here, in this version of me, then I won't beg them to. Because this body carried life. This body stayed up through the night. This body fought to stay soft even while the world tried to harden it. And I'm done apologizing for her. So, if you're watching this and you're in that same space, that quiet, shaky place where you're rebuilding your sense of worth one exhausted breath at a time, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're becoming. And you don't owe anyone your old self back. Not your partner, not society, not even the version of you that misses her. You deserve love that holds space for your evolution. Love that adapts with you, not against you. Love that doesn't flinch when you take up space in a different shape. So if someone tells you, I miss how you used to look, you can look them in the eye and say, I don't. I love who I'm becoming. And if you're a partner, listening, watching, wondering what to do, start here. Say thank you. Say you're proud. Say, I see you. And then keep saying it. Because sometimes the most intimate thing you can do is simply believe her when she says, I'm trying. If this story touched something in you, share it. Send it to a mom. Send it to a dad. Send it to someone who forgot that softness is strength. And if no one's told you yet today, you're allowed to take your time. You're allowed to be tired. And you are still worth loving, exactly as you are.